There's a moment in life when you realize that all your striving, all your effort, all your tight grip on control hasn't given you the peace you were hoping for. You've done everything right, or at least tried to. You've set the goals, crushed the deadlines, pushed through the noise. You've worked on your mindset, your habits, your productivity, but something is still missing. That sense of lightness, of ease, of connection. It's like you're living life with clenched fists. And then you hear something Alan Watts once said, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. And that one metaphor, it explodes everything, because it's not about doing more. It's about letting go. It's about finding the current beneath your effort. It's about learning how to flow. What does it mean to go with the flow? At first glance, it sounds like giving up, like drifting aimlessly, like irresponsibility disguised as wisdom. But Watts never meant it that way. Going with the flow isn't apathy, it's alignment. It's recognizing that life has movement, intelligence, rhythm. And instead of constantly resisting that rhythm with your plans and fears and overthinking, going with the flow means you listen. You synchronize. You stop trying to bend existence to your will and start dancing with it. It's not about stopping action, it's about shifting the quality of action. Are you forcing or are you flowing? Are you fighting life or are you moving in harmony with it?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The problem is, we've been conditioned to see surrender as weakness. We've been taught that if we're not constantly pushing, grinding, controlling, then we're falling behind. We measure our worth by our struggle. We glorify effort, even when it's soul-crushing. But Watts challenges that entire worldview. He suggests that life isn't about domination, it's about participation. And that true power comes not from force, but from flow. Think about it. Water carves through rock not because it's aggressive, but because it's patient. Because it moves with gravity, not against it. So the real question is, where in your life are you swimming upstream? Where are you exhausting yourself trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place? Here's where it gets deeply personal. When we resist the flow of life, we create suffering. Not just stress, but existential suffering. Because resistance creates tension in the body, fragmentation in the mind, and disconnection from the present moment. We become cut off not just from life, but from ourselves. And we don't even notice it. We normalize it. We call it ambition. We call it hustle. But what if the very thing we call progress is the reason we feel so out of sync? Watts would say that freedom begins the moment we stop running. The moment we stop trying to fix the moment and realize the moment doesn't need fixing, it needs witnessing. It needs participation. It needs your presence, not your perfection. So going with the flow isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time with the right energy. It's about dropping the mental noise and becoming sensitive to the deeper current beneath your thoughts. It's about trusting that life is not something you have to conquer, but something you're already a part of. That you're not a separate observer, you're a wave in the ocean. And the more you fight the wave, the harder the crash. But when you ride it, when you move with it, that's where grace lives. That's where aliveness begins. So here's a question to hold in your mind. What would it feel like to let go right now and trust the current to carry you where you're meant to go? The invisible war, Why control feels safe but kills your inner peace. There's a kind of war happening inside most of us, but few people talk about it. It's not a loud war. It's silent, invisible. It's the war between the part of us trying to control everything and the part of us that just wants to breathe. It's the mental grip we keep around our schedules, our relationships, our self-image. It's the obsession with outcomes, with timelines, with figuring it all out. That control feels safe. It feels responsible. But Alan Watts exposes its dark side. He once said, "The desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing." In other words, the more we try to control life, the more anxious we become, because it's not control we're building. It's resistance, and resistance always creates tension. Think about it. When was the last time you truly let go? Not just physically, but mentally. When was the last time you allowed life to unfold without trying to predict, manage, or manipulate it? Most of us can't remember. We've been trained to believe that letting go is reckless. But Watts invites us to see the opposite, that letting go is actually intimate. It's a trust fall into the present. And that trust doesn't make you weak, it makes you free. But the ego hates freedom, because freedom means you're not in charge. Freedom means you're not the author of every scene. And the ego would rather feel stressed than feel uncertain. So we grip, we plan, we force. And in doing so, we slowly suffocate the very flow we're longing for. This war of control shows up everywhere. In our relationships, we try to script how people should behave. In our careers, we cling to plans even when they no longer inspire us. In our inner lives, we judge every emotion, every thought, every reaction as needing to be better. But Watts reminds us that life doesn't work that way. He said, "Problems that remain persistently insoluble should always be suspected as questions asked in the wrong way." Maybe life isn't a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Maybe your anxiety isn't a flaw to be fixed, but a signal that you're trying to manage something that was never meant to be managed. Can you feel that? Can you feel where in your life you've been holding too tightly? Here's where it gets really honest. Most of our control comes from fear. Fear of chaos. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being enough. But what if that fear is a paper tiger? What if the only thing standing between you and peace is your refusal to surrender to what is? Watts would say that surrender isn't passive, it's an act of supreme courage. It means facing the rawness of reality without armor. It means saying, "I don't know what's next, but I trust the ground beneath me." That's not weakness, that's power. Because real power isn't about being untouchable, it's about being real. And reality isn't something you control. It's something you experience. So here's the shift. Instead of asking, "How do I control this?" start asking, "What is this moment asking of me?" Instead of saying, "How do I fix this?" try, "Can I allow this to be here, just as it is?" That shift from control to curiosity is the gateway to peace. The war inside you ends the moment you stop fighting the moment. Watts knew that the flow of life is always available, but only to those who stop trying to dam the river. So ask yourself now, what part of your life are you trying to control that could actually transform if you chose to trust instead? The secret rhythm of reality, how flow becomes freedom when you stop resisting. There's a rhythm to reality that most of us never hear, not because it's hidden, but because we're too busy talking over it. We narrate life in our heads constantly: what went wrong, what might go wrong, what we should have done, what we must do next. But Alan Watts teaches us that the secret rhythm of life, the pulse, the music, the flow isn't something we create. It's something we tune into, and it's always been there, humming beneath the surface of our incessant thinking. He said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." That's not just poetic, it's practical. It means that clarity comes not from effort, but from stillness. Not from solving, but from listening. And when you really start to listen, you don't just hear life, you feel it. Imagine you're in a boat, drifting down a river. You can try to paddle upstream, exhaust yourself fighting the current, and call it progress. Or you can learn to read the river. You can use the current. You can respond rather than resist. That's the essence of flow. It's not about being passive, it's about being responsive. It's about meeting life where it is instead of where you demand it to be. Watts believed the universe is not a machine, it's a dance. And the moment you stop trying to control the music, you start to move with it. That's when something incredible happens. You stop feeling separate from life. You stop feeling like an outsider. You realize you are the dance itself. This realization changes everything, because you begin to trust the intelligence of the moment, not just your plans. You begin to trust your intuition, your body, your breath. You stop living in your head and start living in your being. And from that place, things start to shift not because you forced them, but because you aligned with them. The right people show up. The right answers appear. The right doors open not because you kicked them down, but because you stopped banging on the wrong ones. Watts said, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth." The more you try to force life to happen, the more you get in your own way. But when you soften, when you listen, when you flow, the world opens. This is not philosophy for monks in caves. This is as real as your morning coffee. It's practical. It's immediate. Try it now. Pause. Feel your breath. Feel your body. Don't try to change anything. Just notice. That's flow. That's presence. That's the moment where you stop resisting life and start dancing with it. Imagine bringing that energy into your conversations, your work, your relationships. Imagine meeting conflict not with control, but with curiosity. Imagine trusting that you don't need to have all the answers. That life is not a test, but a song, and you're allowed to sing it wrong, as long as you sing it. That's what Watts meant by freedom. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to be with anything. So here we are. You've been taught your whole life to try harder, to plan more, to overcome. But Watts offers a different path, the path of trust, of surrender, of flow. Not because life is easy, but because resistance makes it harder than it needs to be. He invites us to stop splashing and start floating, to stop grasping and start listening. Because when we stop resisting the moment, we begin to live in it. And that's not just a better way to live, it's the only way to truly live. So I'll ask you this, not as a challenge, but as an invitation. What would happen if you stopped fighting the current and finally let yourself be carried by the river of this moment? That's the beautiful thing about Alan Watts. He didn't just give us words. He gave us permission. Permission to stop pretending, and to stop controlling, to stop performing. He invited us to do something radical in a world obsessed with effort, relax into our own existence. And not in a lazy or detached way, but in a deeply awake way. Going with the flow doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop clinging. It means we stop assuming we know better than life itself. Because maybe, just maybe, there's a deeper intelligence moving through all of this, and through the chaos, through the setbacks, and through you. And the moment you begin to trust that flow not as a theory, but as a felt experience, you begin to live from a different place. You're no longer reacting from fear. You're responding from presence. You're no longer chasing meaning. You're embodying it. You're no longer trying to outrun yourself. You're finally walking beside yourself, hand in hand. That's not weakness. That's wholeness. And that's the secret Alan Watts wanted us to see. You don't need to force life to be beautiful. It already is. You just have to stop interfering long enough to remember. So as this video ends, something else begins, not a new idea, but a new relationship to life. One that doesn't need constant effort to sustain itself. One that moves like water, breathes like wind, and listens like the silence between your thoughts. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't even need to change. You just need to notice. Notice the moment. Notice the current. And most of all, notice that you already are the thing you've been searching for. If this spoke to you, don't rush to understand it. Don't turn it into a task. Just sit with it. Let it echo. Let it rinse the mind clean. Because wisdom doesn't always arrive with a bang. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper, a feeling, a pause. And in that pause, everything changes. Welcome to the flow. You've been in it all along. You just forgot you were the river. Now you remember, and that changes everything.